if I launch my EC2 service and look into the instances, now observe closely. This time, the instance type that has been chosen is T2 dot medium. See, it is T2 dot medium right here. And let's wait. If I click on the security, okay, let's wait for it to assign. Now observe closely, guys. So this time I have assigned a different port range. The port range that we had mentioned was 80 and the protocol is TCP, which is what we had mentioned in our HTTP, in our CloudFormation chain stack that is in my chain set. So that is what we see right here. Now let me just refresh this. It says update has been completed. That's amazing. Now the cleanup is in progress. That means it is deleting the other instances. I think it is deleting the T2.micro. Yes, it has terminated this T2.micro. If I refresh it again, it says update complete. And if I click on this output, it says the key is private IP. The value is this public IP address of the newly created EC2 instance. So whatever I had mentioned over there for the output, that has been displayed for me. So what we have done right now, guys, is so we have seen how we can create the stack using the CloudFormation, and then how we can create a chain set and execute the chain set. So that is what we have done. Now, in order to complete this hands-on activity, I'll just click on this stack again and I'll delete it. So this is going to delete the stack. Now it says delete in progress. If I come over here and refresh my EC2, so now it is shutting down and it is going to terminate and delete all the other resources which has been created with my CloudFormation. So this is one way of performing the initialization and creating the chain set. As I mentioned earlier, and as we have seen already, guys, in the scenario of this CloudFormation chain set, so in this scenario, we cannot replace it. Only thing that we have is we have the option to create the chain set and update it as a new stack. So that is how we can modify the existing infrastructure using CloudFormation. Now, moving on, the next hands-on activity is on deploying the Lambda functions using CloudFormation. Okay, so that's the next hands-on activity. Now, in order to do this activity, we'll do the similar thing, guys. We are going to perform some activity. We are going to create the stack and we are going to upload our template and we'll create it. But before we go over there, let's spend some time and look at the overall requirement of this AWS examination. So if you look into the AWS DevOps professional certification, this is the official page of AWS Certified DevOps Engineer Professional Certification. For the complete guide, I recommend you to go through this examination guide, which is provided to us by the AWS. And here it clearly mentions the AWS Certified DevOps Engineer Professional Examination is intended for the individuals who perform the DevOps engineer role. Okay, and the main things that will be evaluated by the learners is like implementing and managing the CI/CD methodologies on AWS, and implement and automate the security control, governance process, and compliance validation. Define and deploy monitoring, metrics, and logging systems in AWS. Implement the systems which are highly scalable, self-healing on the AWS platform. Design, manage, maintain the tools to automate operational process. So in our learning journey till now, we have seen how we can perform this activity. The first one, and we have completed the looking at in this last one as well. Let's have a look into the important topics from the examination perspective for the topics that we have covered. Now, when I talk about the target candidate for this examination, being this a professional examination, the candidate is expected to have at least two or more years of experience in provisioning, operating, and managing the AWS environment. And the candidate must also have the experience in developing the code is in at least one high level programming language, because when it comes to writing the code, so yeah, like if you have a knowledge on Python or Java, it's actually a preferred one. The recommended AWS knowledge is experience in building highly automated infrastructure, administering operating system, understanding of modern development and operation process and methodologies. Now I'll just come below. So that examination content will be of multiple choice, and sometimes you'll also get the multiple response questions as well. Okay, and always remember, when it comes to examination, there is no negative marking. There is no penalty for guessing. Ensure that you guess as much as possible. Now, let me revise on the important topics on the concepts that we have covered. Now, from the examination perspective, so you will have to apply the concepts which are required to automate our CI/CD pipeline. Now, this involves you aware of setting up the repositories, setting up the build services using the AWS code build, integrate the automation testing, set up the deployment product services, orchestrate multiple pipeline stages. From the hands-on session, I'm sure you're confident in doing this at a basic level. I recommend you to go through the documentation which we have covered in the last session, and then determine the source control strategies, how to implement them. You can determine the workflow for integrating the code changes from multiple contributors, assess the security requirements, and recommend code repository access design, reconcile the application versions to repository versions with the help of tags, differentiate different source control types, apply the concepts required to automate and integrate testing. So these are the important core topics. And if I go further down, apply concepts required to build and manage the artifacts in a secure manner, and determine the code environment dependencies, which are like code deploy app spec, code build spec. So these are some of the important things that you need to be aware of. And your second domain, which you will be tested upon, is an important domain, I would say. It's called as configuration management and the infrastructure as a cloud, as a code, which is what we have covered in depth in our hands-on learning sessions. So here, it's all about determining the deployment services on the basis of deployment needs, demonstrate the knowledge of process flows of deployment models, determine the application and infrastructure deployment models on the basis of the business needs, and then perform the provisioning with the help of CloudFormation template and lifecycle hooks on deployment. So related to managing the configuration management tools and services. So that covers your domain 2. And domain 3, domain 4, and domain 5, it's all about a high level monitoring and logging, policies and standards automation, and the incident and the event response. So these are the important topics. And at the end, you'll also have the high availability and fault tolerance and disaster recovery. So these are the other domains which you have to concentrate.